Are you looking to find an investment property here in Colorado Springs and you don't really know where to start? Well, this is going to be the perfect spot to get the basics and a general idea of when you're looking at maps of where good property locations are going to be. This is going to be just a map video of all of those spots for long-term, mid-term, short-term rentals, as well as rent by the room. And we're going to talk about supply in certain areas and what makes them really good for appreciation. So let's get to it. Okay, we are going to start with supply here in Colorado Springs. A very simple thing that is in Colorado Springs as well as up in Denver is the mountains. The mountains are all this green stuff all the way down. They go forever. It seems like they're basically an entire western view of Colorado is just the mountains, basically. So in Colorado Springs specifically, we do have Woodland Park out here and Manitou Springs, Green Mountain Falls, great little mountain towns and good areas to go and visit when you're here in Colorado Springs. But the problem on the west side of town is that we can't build any more west, and we can't build any more north on the west of I-25 because of the Air Force Academy. So we're limited to just these sections that are here, are all that's really going to be here for the rest of time. Meaning that the homes in this area have a very high appreciating value because you can't build any more of them. There's no more supply of them coming online. And the ones that are being built, there's only a few spots in those sections of where there's enough land to build. And when they are building, they're usually building apartments to try and have more 1-2 bedroom places and some townhomes in the areas, but most of them are just those style and not single family homes. So single family homes and multifamily of house and cottage and duplex go for a pretty penny on this part of the west side. Now on the east side of town, over here you can see all of this land basically going until Kansas. And so this is where a ton of new builds are happening in Colorado Springs. And the problem that I don't really love about it is that if you were to buy a property here on the east side of town, and you're renting it out for a couple years and then you decide to sell it, why would someone buy your house when they could just buy a newer one a couple blocks away for probably the same price? And so you would have to drop your price, end up losing a lot of value that you held the property for. If you were going to hold it for 10, 20 years, yeah, you would make a good investment back on it. But if you're going for, under 5, it probably is not going to be very good. Probably would have to be over 5 years to where I would see something on the east side making you enough money to where you'd be happy with it, when you could just buy anywhere on the west side or even in these middle sections around Palmer Park and up north, and it'll be a way better investment for you. Next, we're going to talk about home values that are going to be in these areas. The median home price in Colorado Springs as of summer of 2024 is $460,000. Typically on the west side of town is where you're going to have a lot of smaller homes because there's not a lot of space, and they were built in the early 1900s, most of the homes. So they're going to be smaller and they're going to be very unique and have those good features of old Victorians if you really like that style of home. It's going to vary down in Old Colorado City in terms of the home price. It could be anywhere from $350,000 for a small 1-bedroom bath all the way up to $1 million or more. Typically like a 4-bedroom 2-bath, I would see us around $650,000, and a duplex around $500,000 on the west side right here. Rock Rimmon area, you'll be around the $500,000 to $600,000, getting up to $1 million. This will be more single-family homes, and we'll have a larger lot size compared to down in OCC, so that will increase the home price to being $600,000 or more very quickly. Over in Briargate, this would be a great single-family home spot, typically around $500,000, going up north to Northgate and even up into Monument is where you'll get to $700,000, $800,000 homes. These ones up here won't be great for investments. You won't break even on those numbers, but in Briargate, you do have potential to break even and to get something like the 450, 500 range that will break even on numbers right now, because in Colorado, we're all about appreciation. Getting the cash flow is not really possible unless you do rent by the room or Airbnb. And even those are tricky properties to find, so you have to be patient when you are looking. But for a standard long-term rental, you're going to have to do a higher down payment and be okay breaking even or making only $100 or so in the beginning years until rates drop is when you would have that chance to get a lot more cash flow during that time. Now moving over to the east in this section, homes around here can vary from around 400 to 600,000. The more north you go, the higher in price point it will become. The further south, the lower in price point. And these will all be single family homes and townhomes in the area. In the middle section of town right here, probably around 450 to 500,000 is what you'll see, especially going down south. This will definitely be in like the 350 to 400,000 down here. This section will be very high priced because this is where the Broadmoor is, and most homes in the area will definitely be over 700,000. Not good for investing, but great area to live in. Same with over here next to Ute Valley Park. We talked about Rock Ribbon a little bit. This area right here of Flying West Ranch Road, this will be also in the high price, being around the 700,000 or higher mark. Lots of larger homes and in newer builds in the last like 10 years areas around here. Now, the key sections that you want to avoid investing in are going to be anywhere down south. You can still invest on the east side, you just won't get a ton of appreciation. You'll have that problem that I talked about earlier of someone buying a home near yours and not yours because it's basically the same, just newer. The main place you want to avoid would be anything south of 24, definitely. Ideally south of Platte until about you hit Union right here, because everything down in this area will just give you a higher chance of having a tenant that's going to cause problems. You might have to do an eviction. There's going to be a lot of maintenance stuff. Those are just stuff you want to avoid. You want to have a smooth going tenant. And down here in Security Wide Field, it's just not a great area for having investment property. The value of the homes are a lot lower, even though the entry price will be something that you're really going to want to do because it's like $350,000. You're like, oh yeah, let's definitely make something like that happen. Once you get a few bad tenants in there, it won't be worth it at all. Now going into Security Wide Field area, and even down into Fountain, this is the same exact thing as this south section. A lot of crime happens in Security Wide Field, and I just would prefer that you avoid it at all costs. If you manage it or your property manager is the one operating it for you, they're going to have a lot of challenges finding good tenants in these areas. Even though it is very close to Fort Carson and to Peterson, overall, you're going to want to have something that's just outside of the east areas to still have military tenants for that section. Cimarron Hills, I think, is a great spot for if you are targeting military tenants, because we do have 4 military bases here in Colorado Springs. There's Fort Carson, the Air Force Academy, and then we have Schriever, and then Peterson is right here. So lots of opportunity for finding military tenants. You just have to be specific with finding a good house that's just outside of that bad area and in a good section of Colorado Springs. Now, for long-term rentals, if you want to have something that would be a good price, good location, and you have the highest chance of getting it to break even or cash flow here in Colorado Springs, you're going to want something that's going to be around 400 to 480. Typically, that's going to be somewhere on the west side of town, but if it's on the west side of town, you're going to want to make sure it's as large as possible for 4 bedrooms. And if it's on the east side of town, you can find that pretty easy, but once you get too far north is where price points will get over 500, and you likely won't be able to make those numbers work. But it will be in a fantastic area. You might just have to put more money down of 25, 30, 35% even in order to make the numbers still work. So if you're okay with doing that and holding on for 10 plus years, it'll be a great appreciation play, and then over time you'll get better cash flow the longer you hold the property. So back to good locations for long-term rentals. I really like just north of Palmer Park, all in this section, all the way up to Woodman. Great spot for finding a long-term rental. Briargate is fantastic as well. You'll start to be getting pushed up into the 500, price point range, but fantastic school district in Briargate. This is where District 20 is, and it's the best district for schools in Colorado Springs. Even over here, these are all great areas of Colorado Springs. Black Forest is very beautiful. However, the home price there is very high. It's great to live in, but if you're looking for an investment property, it's not the spot to go. Coming down on the southeast section, probably around this right here, Stetson Hills Barnes area, is where home prices will still be around that under 500 to where they can make sense. And the Powers corridor going all the way down to where 24 meets. It has a ton of shopping, tons of food, tons of entertainment stuff going on. A great spot for if someone were to live in the area, they have a bunch of stuff to do near them so they don't have to be traveling a lot for the area. For this middle section, ideally we want to stay above Platte until it hits Union. This downtown area is good for investments. You will want to find something, again, that's similar to the west side. That's a larger property that you can get for the most amount of rent. We'll talk about multifamily homes here in a second. But anything that is north of here, this will all be some good areas. Not as good as the north side of Palmer Park. This section right here, around like north of Constitution, Fillmore area, I don't love this area right here. This section I don't think is a good spot to have an investment. Around UCCS, the college, these can be good areas if you want to target students that are going to be living in this and do rent by the room. It can work really well in this neighborhood. Ideally, something that's very close to Austin Bluffs. The further deeper you get in over in these areas, it's kind of like a neighborhood by neighborhood for what's good and what's bad around UCCS. And we'll go in a lot deeper on another video for long-term rentals, specifically on what good neighborhoods. This is just to give you a good start on generally getting an idea of where you want to avoid and where you want to look in a lot harder for the Colorado Springs market. Next, for furnished rentals that are going to be medium-term 30-day stays, ideally you want to be around some of the downtown areas and hospitals. Downtown, we do have 2 hospitals that are really close. Right here next to the Olympic Training Center, we have Memorial Hospital. And then just up north, right near where I'm at right now, is Penrose. And anywhere in this section of me here, you have Patty Jewett Golf Course. Downtown is very close. You can get up over to Old Colorado City. We call that OCC very quickly. 2 downtown areas, hospitals. You can get over to hiking very quickly. The Bear Creek Dog Park is right here, Garden of the Gods. There's just tons of stuff to do around the downtown and west side. That will be great for a travel nurse that's coming that wants to experience the area and be in a close place to work as well. And all these spots are, I wouldn't say walkable. The only walkable areas are around downtown and OCC. Over in the Old North End is walkable as well, but it's just very tricky the further east you go for having it walkable. But definitely by bike, a nurse could get to the hospital here and the hospital over there by bike. So this would be one good section for a midterm rental. The other section would be up here near St. Francis, and there's another hospital somewhere around here as well, and another one up off of Interquest. Right, it's like right on this corner right here is where it is. But since there's a hospital here, and around here, anywhere off this Woodman Road going all the way across goes over to Falcon is a good spot for having a furnished rental. They're going to be more single-family homes that are a lot larger, of 3-bedroom, 2-bath plus in this area. But having the access along Woodman is a ton of entertainment shops and dining. And you can get over hiking on the west side pretty quick. And then if they are working over here, you can get from Woodman to 25 to that hospital. And then St. Francis is the big one over here that draws a lot of people working in this area from all these medical facilities. So those are the 2 spots you're going to want to look for furnished rentals in Colorado Springs. Next, we're going to look at short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are very tricky in Colorado Springs because there's a lot of limitations and rules around them. But the good thing is that they're healthy rules because it makes it so that there's not a ton of supply of short-term rentals in the area. And this went in 2019, just before all the short-term rental stuff went crazy and, people were buying them up and COVID and all that happened, if you're familiar with what happened with prices during that time. So short-term rental laws are it has to be zoned multifamily, which means R2, R4, R5, C5, something multifamily. And it also has to be 500 feet or more distance away from another non-owner occupied short-term rental, so you cannot live in it. But if you do live in it, you have to live in it for 185 days or more, and then you can move out during that time period. So if you're not going to be living in it, you're going to want to stick to those rules, and typically it's going to be around this downtown area or on the west side in OCC in Colorado Springs, which works out well because these areas have the most attraction and the most stuff going on anyways. So that's where you're going to end up being. Typically, it'll be a single-family home or a duplex that work well for the short-term rentals. We do have Garden of the Gods right here, the Olympic Training Center, the Olympic Museums downtown. Plus, you have the Strip of Colorado has a lot of stuff. Red Rocks Open Space. You can get to Manitou Springs and do the incline really quickly. So there's just a lot of stuff to do. Plus, Pikes Peak is right here, so you can drive up and go and do that. So lots of good activities in Colorado Springs, and it actually was originally a tourist city from the start. That's kind of how it kind of started to grow, and then all the military bases that came to it kind of turned it into more of a secondary city to Denver here in Colorado. So short-term rentals, great option to do. You can cash flow during short-term rentals. With rates being at 7%, it's very tricky to make that happen, but you can find them and make the deal. It may take some rehab and some patience of doing a rehab type of a BRRRR strategy, but it can make sense more than long-term rentals here in Colorado Springs. The next one we're going to talk about is rent by the room. And we mentioned the military bases already because rent by the room works fantastic here in Colorado Springs, probably better than Airbnb and midterm rental is. As of right now, I would say it's probably the best one to be doing. It just takes a lot of work of managing, 5-6 leases all in one property here in town. So the best locations for them are going to be around where most of the military bases are. So we have Fort Carson, which is down here. There's Peterson, and then we have Schriever out here. Typically, for the Air Force Academy, they stay on base. They don't usually get off base too often. So doing rent by the room in these areas don't make sense. And the homes are very high priced up here as well. So the numbers don't make sense doing rent by the room there either. Typically, for a rent by the room, you're going to have it at around $700 to $800 per bedroom, depending on the amenities that you have. So the best areas where rent by the room works can be Security Wide Field area and Cimarron Hills. If you go too far north, you'll get to where you're running into HOAs, and you really need to have a lot of parking around the property, so HOAs are going to be a no-go. So anything that's like, even with Palmer Park right here, kind of in these sections of Cimarron Hills and around Palmer Park Boulevard, will be good spots for doing rent by the room. Any other spots for doing it, like on the west side, can make sense, but you just won't have enough people that are looking to do rent by the room over in these areas. And this will typically be if you are not living in the property and you're going to keep operating it as a rent by the room after you move out. If you're just going to house hack it and live in it and do rent by the room, I think you can go wherever you want in Colorado Springs. If your plan once you move out of the property is to turn into a long-term rental or a short-term rental. If you keep doing it as a rent by the room even after you move out, then you're going to want to be in these ideal areas where it's around a lot of military bases. Lastly, now we're going to talk about multifamily and where those types of properties typically are. You'll see some up north. Typically it'll be like a brand new like duplex, but they'll like split it into being a townhome on each side type of a thing. So it's like you could buy them together and make it a duplex. It'll just be very expensive, of like $950,000 is what they are up north because they're very new. But mostly you'll see them in the downtown areas and on the west side. Probably until you hit like Circle right here in Union, you'll see some multifamily in here. But the best places will be downtown and west side. In this section, they will be more run down, and you won't really love the tenant base that you'll get in these areas as well. But if it's closer to Constitution, the better for this little section between Union and Circle. If you get too close to Platte, that's where it's really like C-class, run down, not a good place for having a rental property. But anything west of Union, you're good to go. Will be a fantastic location for duplex and house and cottage in these areas. Typically, duplexes go for around $500,000 in 2024. House and cottages are closer to around $700,000, $750,000. And that would be for like pretty move-in ready. If it's under that, it'll probably still need a lot of work being done to it. If it's more than that, it's probably a really nice, really clean property with fantastic finishes, and probably very large with garages and 4 bedrooms and probably a 1-2 bedroom cottage as well on each side. So those are the typical areas that you'll be looking for multifamily. That's it for your map video of Colorado Springs to get you started on where you should be looking for good areas and good places to invest here in Colorado Springs. If you have any questions, let me know. I help people find investment properties, short-term rentals, house hacking all over Colorado Springs, even up into the southern parts of Denver area and going all the way out into Buena Vista for some short-term rentals. Please let me know. I'm happy to help you out. See you next time.